Janet and I are breaking into a rich family's house today, and we're going to steal as much as we can. It's the most gorgeous rich person house you've ever seen, and according to Janet, chock full of rare and expensive heirlooms. The plan is this: we're going to rob them of all the things we can carry in 2 hands, and then sell them off to Lyle for a pretty penny, and then use the money to buy a houseboat and take that to New Orleans. Anything can happen in New Orleans. Janet says not to worry. I ask Janet to tell me the plan again. I stir Splenda into my coffee. I ask Janet what about the cops. Janet says there are no cops in this neighborhood. Nothing bad ever happens here. She says everyone in this neighborhood harbors exactly 0 concerns about tragedy or inconvenience ever befalling their perfect lives because they're cheerful, beautiful people who see the world through rose-colored Ray-Bans. Syrup dribbles down my chin. Janet says, how do you expect to get anywhere unless you're willing to take on a little risk? And I need you to know, she says, it's a real turnoff for me when you're all wishy-washy and anxious in the face of an opportunity like this. Why don't you just man up for once, she says. If I don't say anything, Janet will get this out of her system and stop. I swallow a bolus of waffle. Janet glances up from her plate and her expression dissolves into warm. There's that face. Who am I kidding? I can't deny her anything. We leave the restaurant and get in the car. We are driving fast. Janet always drives and Janet loves to speed. Janet lives life in the fast lane and has a tattoo to prove it. It says live life in the fast lane in Jokerman font on the inside of her right forearm, which shifts to 4th gear as we speed through a stop sign. We're parked in front of the Carryway house and I've started shaking. I don't say anything. Janet looks at me like she doesn't want to say anything and I look at her like please don't say anything. And all she says is it's going to be fine. Just do exactly what I tell you and we'll be fine. She pecks me on the lips and with her other hand opens the car door and gets out. She doesn't wait for me. The trunk is open and Janet is carrying 6 empty duffel bags in the direction of the front porch, 3 in each hand. She knows I'll follow her. I know I'll follow her. I am shaking. Rich kids are playing in the street outside the car, boys and girls together, a big pink rubber ball between them. They're kicking, throwing, catching it. The car is quiet and I'm alone in here, and the quiet is a heavy thing that swallows me up. And oh, why can't I just stay here and let Janet do what she needs to do while I wait here, in the sweet quiet of this place, watching rich kids play ball? Why not, I am thinking. Because Janet would leave me. Janet would kick me to the curb and wipe her hands of me and move to New Orleans all by herself. And that would be that. And I think I love Janet. That's right, I tell myself out loud this time. I love Janet. I'd be nowhere and nothing without Janet. And with that, I cease my shaking and get out of the car. She's already up the porch steps and knocking on the front door to be safe, to confirm no one is inside. Janet is so thorough. The Carryways have gnomes in their yard. They're very tasteful. The hedges in front of the wraparound porch are trimmed and they have all kinds of flowers I can't name. Just terrific biodiversity. I'm up the first stair, second stair, just behind Janet as she knocks again. Then she twists the door handle. But the door does not open. The door is locked. It was not supposed to be locked. Janet, why is it locked? I say. I don't know, she says. It's okay. Just relax. Janet pulls a long strand of copper wire from her pocket and slides it in the lock. She finagles it around like she knows what she's doing. Janet knows what she's doing. I can hear real glee in the voices of the children in the street as one of them scores a point of something. I wish I was back in the car. I say nothing. Janet says nothing. She is twisting copper wire. The door clicks unlocked. It's louder than you'd imagine. Janet does not hesitate to push it open. We can now see inside the house through the gaping hole the open door has made. The inside of the house is vast and dark and, frankly, uninviting. The children are screaming. I want to join them and leave this behind. Janet is inside the house and does not look back. Softly smiling ceramic gnomes stare straight ahead forever at nothing in particular. Hedge leaves bristle in the soft wind. I am taking a step. I am taking another step. This is how anyone does anything. One action, then another action, and then another. And then you open your eyes again and you're inside a big house you never wanted to enter in the first place. I am inside the house. The back door swings shut behind me and I'm not sure if it's me or Janet that's done this. We are in here. We are past the critical threshold. We are committed. The word commitment flashes across my mind in dense black impact font. We are breaking and entering. Past tense. We have broken and we have entered. The staircase straight ahead is wide and carpeted. There is a chandelier above us and it's made of a million little glass candles that fill with yellow light when switched on. Janet switches them on. It smells like a rich person's house, like open space and fabric softener sheets, I think. Janet is way ahead of me. Janet is in the kitchen, opening cabinets, closing them. I can hear metal dishware clanking, glass dishes clinking. We have a designated bag for ceramics so as to prevent breakage during transport. There are big, big paintings on all the walls. Here is the Carryway family. Mother, father, son, the Trinity, oil on acrylic, like 10 by 15 feet at least, hanging high in the parlor room to my left. Janet is in front of me. Wake up, she says, we have work to do. I follow Janet into the kitchen. Forks and knives, Janet says. Grab them. They're worth more than you know. Forks and knives. Forks and knives and spoons. I'm scooping them out of drawers and tossing them into the designated non-fragile kitchenware duffel bag. I would never guess silverware would sell for much, but here we are. I don't make the rules. Clank, clank, clank goes the forks. They're copper or gold, I think. Very pretty. I can't imagine eating waffles with these. They're so shiny. The kitchen island countertop is a thick marble slab made up of black and white clouds intersecting and melting into each other. If only we could leave with this, like the marble itself. It's gotta be worth a pretty penny. I take the initiative to take the china plates from the top shelf. It's generally good practice to anticipate Janet's needs. She'll be pleased. Janet's in the TV room trying to open the safe. She curses out loud at the safe, which I take to be not a great sign. I focus on the task at hand. Expensive heirloom forks and knives and spoons and china plates, and I don't have any earthly clue how Lyle will know what all this is worth, but surely Janet has a vision and has it all figured out, and God, I hope so, because we're well past the critical threshold of having broken and having entered, and are now verifiably robbing the poor Carryway family blind, who by now are probably on the way to the airport in Brisbane. Janet yells at the top of her perfect lungs, "Fucking open, you fucking piece of shit," and I croak back, "Everything okay, honey?" But she doesn't hear me, so I leave it. There's a whole separate mural of the Carryway clan here in the kitchen, which is just bonkers to me, but anyway, it's here that Mrs. Carryway's maternal gaze catches me off guard and stops me in my tracks. Her eyes are green and piercing. I drop a fork to the floor and it bounces off the tile with a sharp ding. I'm staring into her stern, knowing face like she is my own mother, watching me do all this. Not saying anything about it, just watching. Like she knows I'm watching her watch me. I can't bring myself to pick up the fork. I break away from the mural to check on Janet in the other room, who's still cursing under her breath at the safe. I creep up behind her and ask tenderly, "Got everything figured out, honey?" And she whirls and backhands my cheek with the force of a winter storm. I fell in love with Janet the first time she held a knife to my throat. She mugged me outside the ice cream shop I worked at. One second I was locking the doors behind me, the next I felt her blade pressing into the pale skin above my carotid, and there she was. The most stunning woman I'd ever seen. She was somehow the exact visual amalgamation of all my childhood fantasies and crushes and dream girls, and at the same time unlike anyone I'd seen before. Undoubtedly the most beautiful face I'd seen before, and she had a black mask obscuring half of it, so that's saying a lot. She pressed the knife against me harder, now drawing a thin line of blood on the surface, so as to demonstrate she meant business. She said, "Hand over the cash box," which I was still holding, but I was so mesmerized by the sensual tenor of her voice that I remained helpless and frozen in my position until she shook me hard, drawing an even deeper line of blood, and said, "I'm going to cut your throat wide open." Again, I can't stress this enough, just the most beautiful voice you've ever heard. I gave her the cash box without a thought. The chemicals were running loud and fast between my ears. Adrenaline, cortisol, oxytocin. She took the cash and turned to leave as fast as she appeared. See, what's funny is I normally have a real hard time talking to or approaching girls, but with Janet, it was immediate. Autonomic. I called out after her, "You know, there's way more of that inside." And she paused, turned, considered me for a moment or two. Perhaps she saw something in me. She started back towards me, knife in hand. Then she let me help her break into the ice cream shop. She let me let her into the safe in the back office where she robbed the poor owners blind, family friends of mine, unfortunately. And yes, Janet let me do all of this without her serrated blade against any one of my pale body parts, which I figure is where our trusted bond began to bloom, where she started to see me as less of a victim/opportunity and more of a partner in crime, as we later came to call each other. When we left the ruined shop that night, I meant it when I said, "Thank you for the opportunity." And she meant it when she said, "Let's do it again sometime." Janet tells me, "Sorry for backhanding you, honey. I'm just trying to get into this safe." She asks, "Did I manage to get all the silverware together?" I say, yes, I did. But she's not listening because her attention is fixed on getting this damn safe open. I step back to give her some space. Janet likes to have her space. I take 5 big steps back and am still in the same room. This is by far the biggest living room I have ever been in. The feeling is something like awe, or maybe reverence, like standing beneath the great painted ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, overcome by sheer scale and grandiosity. I would have to imagine. I have not been. The word cavernous flashes across my mind in size 25 font. I am now out of the living room. While Janet continues to rob the Carryways, I go exploring. The floors of the house are spotless, and the antique furniture is flush with the walls and all the angles are correct, and the feng shui is clearly very well thought through. The place is exceptionally clean. You can tell someone's put in a great deal of effort to keep it that way. The AC is on and maintains a temperature of what feels like 65 degrees. It's got to be a pretty penny to condition this much air. Got to be pretty important to keep doors and windows shut at all times so as not to let the expensive conditioned air escape into the great outdoors. I am in the parlor. The parlor is a separate room from the living room. There are kids playing and laughing in the street, and it is, what would you say, idyllic? I am in a hallway lined with murals and photographs. Personally, I wish there were more paintings and or photographs of soldiers and or American history, since there is in fact only one of those. But of course the process of decorating a home requires a certain commitment to compromise. You have to give as much as you take, so to speak. You simply cannot win them all. Anyway, here is Washington crossing the Delaware. Here is the bathroom. The Carryway family estate really speaks to the expression, "You've made this house a home." That's what the mural above the toilet says in graffiti-style print. I'm washing my hands with, again, very tasteful lavender honey hand soap. I consider taking the hand soap with me, but we do not have a designated duffel for that, so I do not. I'm walking back into the kitchen. The windows in the house are as tall as two Honda Odysseys stacked on top of each other hamburger style, and have clearly been sprayed down with Windex and a microfiber cloth in gentle little circles so as to prevent streaks. The Carryways have a bigger lawn than I'd personally know what to do with, but you know what, come to think of it, we'd probably start with some lavender or yarrow or common sage over there maybe. And you know what, why not a tomato plant and some basil to get some herbs going? We could later expand this into a full-scale kitchen garden. We have the space, why not use it, right? The grass needs mowing. It's a beautiful day to mow, but of course that's not why we're here. Focus, come on. Remember why we're here. Janet gathers 2 of the 6 bags of stolen goods by the door, ahead of schedule. The mantel in the living room is adorned with the most adorable sculptures of little old men of various old-timey professions. Here is a cobbler, a miner, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Here's the baker's wife, ceramic also, affixed to a separate stand. Janet tosses them all into the designated duffel. We fill the duffel bags to bursting with all manner of expensive knickknacks. Who would have guessed a bejeweled ashtray would be worth hundreds if not thousands? Who would have guessed the Carryways would own 3 of them? With all the bags by the door, Janet says, "Okay, Joey, honey, let's go. It's time to go." I'm standing in the spotless, air-conditioned dining room adjacent to the parlor and thinking how perfect it would be for a family Christmas, wouldn't it? We could fill every seat at the great long mahogany table and have both sides of the family come over, all of mine meeting all of Janet's, in one big, beautiful union of clans, and Janet's mouthing something at me as she zips up the last black duffel, and I'm spinning slowly in the room, calculating how tall the Christmas tree could be in that corner over there, and now Janet's walking up to me, her eyes wide with scary, perhaps to join me in dance, but no, instead she slaps me again and just says, "Snap out of it." Our first kiss was in the living room of the Van Dyke estate, in front of Mr. and Mrs. Van Dyke, actually, who were both bound to chairs and blindfolded. We had miscalculated a few crucial details. The wealthy couple, empty nesters, happened to be home and asleep when we came in to relieve them of their prized china collection and antique silverware. Turns out that's where the real money is, Janet had said. Anyway, the Van Dykes were both in the more, shall we say, fragile stages of sleep when Janet and I, still in the talking phase, broke into their home and began filling our black duffel bags with their dining room. The Van Dykes soon came downstairs to investigate the invasion noises, rubbing their eyes and dressed in rich people's silk pajamas, and when they saw us there, just 2 kids rifling through their cabinets, they didn't even scream. They just stood there, wrinkly mouths gaping open, perhaps thinking they were still dreaming, though of course they were not. And we all 4 of us remained fixed in our positions like this until Janet all at once snapped into action, and using the antique ceramic spaghetti pot, bonked poor Mr. Van Dyke over the head and sent him tumbling to the floor. This got poor Mrs. Van Dyke to finally scream, an ear-splitting, desperate thing cut short only by Janet's bonking her across her own head, so that they both lay unconscious and immobile across each other on their electronically heated tile floor. Janet wasted no time in relocating the aging bodies. "Are you just going to stand there slack-jawed the whole night?" she said. This verbal love tap certainly got me up and moving again, and suddenly I was helping Janet gather the sleeping old people into their dining room chairs. I helped Janet tie their hands behind the backs of the chairs with electrical cords from their state-of-the-art television set up in the parlor room. We tied bowline knots, which they teach you in the Navy. I had to imagine. I had not been. We tied their waists to the backs of the chairs so they couldn't stand up, and we did this with kitchen wire because at this point we'd run out of electrical cords. And then, we blindfolded them with torn-off strips of their own silken pajamas, not out of practical necessity, but because we thought it was kind of funny. And that moment, standing in front of the Van Dykes, in the heat of our first robbery plus assault, that's where we kissed. Long and deep and real. Me and Janet, wrapped in a blanket of young love, all the adrenaline and cortisol in the world pumping out wildly within our veins. I'm helping Janet carry the duffels outside. I'm carrying 2 and she's carrying 4. Janet is stronger than you'd think. We unload the bags into the trunk and back seat. The kids are still playing ball in the street there, and one of the boys looks over at us as we stumble towards our escape. I make eye contact with him for only a moment. He returns to the game. I turn to look at the house one more time. I look through the big tall windows and can still see the family mural in the parlor. I look at the corner of the room where a Christmas tree might go. I look at the mahogany dining table that seats at least 20, no sweat. I look at the wraparound porch, at the lawn, the hedges, the terrific biodiversity, the gnomes. And I look at Janet and I say, Janet, wait. But she just gets in the car and the car screams into ignition. And I say, wait, hold on, honey. And I scramble into the passenger side and put my hand on Janet's hand on the gear shift to stop her from shifting and say, Janet, listen to me. And she listens. I say to Janet, let's stay here at the house for a while. She says, now why would we do that? We got what we came for. I say to her, why not? When else will we have the opportunity? I say Lyle can wait a night to buy the loot off us, and the Carryways don't get in till morning. Why not enjoy the place to ourselves, I say. Janet points out, an hour ago I was terrified of stepping a foot inside, and now here I am wanting a sleepover. Yes, that's right, I say. I tell Janet she can do what she wants, but I'm staying the night. I ask her kindly not to slap me. She says she's not going to slap me. She says, are you being serious? And I say, yes, I'm being serious. Janet's got an embryo of a smirk on her face. I take this to be at least an okay sign, and I get out of the car. I don't wait for Janet. A moment later, I hear the driver's side door open, close, followed by Janet's footsteps. The kids are still playing ball in the street, and for all we know, may have always been playing ball in the street since like the beginning of time. The same boy catches a glance at us and then plays ball again. Janet and I ascend the porch. The door is unlocked this time. We stand back inside the house. The gnomes stare ahead. Perfectly trimmed hedges bristle in the wind. It is me who shuts the door. I lead Janet into the kitchen. There is a refrigerator full of what a family eats. The cabinets are fully stocked. Tonight I'll cook dinner for us. Janet goes to the wine. Neither of us know how to use a bottle opener, so we try cutting through the glass stem with a stainless steel knife, but the whole bottle shatters and Cabernet Sauvignon spills everywhere. Janet laughs at this. I do not. That was good wine. Janet is strangely, activated by the spillage and takes another bottle from the cabinet and just up and hurls it at the wall. I say to her, now, why did you do that? And she says, because it's fun. What's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with me, I say. That's good wine. We should try drinking it instead of wasting it. Like adults. Janet says, you're not an adult. And she comes in to slap me, but I catch her wrist in motion. I hold it there for a moment and her mouth drops open. I release her hand. We've had quite enough of that for now. Thank you. Janet's shock is plain, obscured by nothing, unambiguous. She takes another wine bottle and hurls it at the wall, this time a Merlot. I am not pleased by this waste of good wine, but I know better than to give her a reaction. The behavior is an obvious, desperate bid for attention. If you just ignore these, the perpetrator will stop, is the working theory on this. Janet hurls a total of 12 red wine bottles against the same spot on the wall and 4 bottles of white at a different spot. She laughs intermittently. I do not. I drift into the TV room and flip on the game. This is one of my favorite games, played by some of my favorite athletes. I am emotionally invested in the outcome of this event. Oh, and I almost forgot. I turn back to the fridge to grab a cold one. I know there's cold ones in there. I slip in a growing puddle of shattered glass and wine and fall to the ground. Janet laughs. I do not gratify the bid for attention. I stand up, open the fridge, crack open a cold one, and return to the game. I love the game. What a great game. Janet's watching me like I'm a stranger she's never met before. In reality, this is our 13th date, but who's counting? If you've broken and entered a suburban home with someone, you probably have a tighter bond than the vast majority of American couples. One would think. Eventually, Janet joins me on the couch. Isn't this nice? I say. Janet sighs. It is a loaded sigh, and I do not unpack it. The game is on. Janet's legs feel nice on mine like this. This is nice. The Carryways have these automatic sprinklers that kick on around 8 p.m. That's when I fire up the George Foreman on the back patio and grill us up some portobello mushroom burgers. And Janet says, but I don't like mushrooms, Joey. And I say, just give them a try. You won't know until you try. And Janet tries a bite and decides she can bear it. I didn't know you knew how to cook, she says. Tell you the truth, sweetheart, I didn't know either. I ask Janet, would she be so kind as to do the dishes, given that I prepared the meal? In the spirit of economy, I say. She just looks at me blankly. I'm getting used to this new face of hers. I don't push the issue. She'll have plenty of time to adjust. Patience is a virtue. I read that somewhere. Janet and I make our way up the grand carpeted staircase and into the Carryway's master bedroom. As a fun bonding activity, we try on all the different clothes of Mr. and Mrs. Carryway. I spurred on some of Mr. Carryway's cologne, and Janet wears Mrs. Carryway's perfume, and both selections smell really old and kind of off-putting, but this adds to the whole experience. We rip through the couple's dresser drawers, making a whole big mess of everything. We do this for most of the evening. We wake up the very moment the sunlight slices through the blinds and lands across our faces. Janet murmurs, "Where are we?" and I remind her. She rolls over back to sleep, and I get up to make her Eggs Benedict. Downstairs in the kitchen, I can see the same kids already outside and playing ball. It is getting to be a little hard to believe at this point, but still idyllic nonetheless. I cook breakfast for Janet. I brew coffee. She floats downstairs around 8:30. "How'd you sleep, honey?" I say. "Fine," she says. "We'll have to get going soon. The Carryways are getting here in 30. "You sound like you're excited to go." "Let's just get the shit to Lyle and get to New Orleans," she says. I say nothing. Janet eats her eggs. She sips her coffee. I flip through the pages of a newspaper I found on the front porch. The lawn is looking a little overgrown. I've noticed the air conditioning is a degree or two too warm, so I check all the rooms of the house for any open doors or windows where the air might be escaping. I load Janet's dirty dishes into the automatic dishwasher and put a washer pod in the slot and say to Janet, "Honey, here's a good system for future reference. If the dishes are dirty, load the washer pod in advance. That way we always know if it's dirty or not. If it's empty, dishes are clean. You get me?" Janet just stares. Her eyes track me across the floor as I sweep up crumbs. Janet's back in the bedroom, now pocketing Mrs. Carryway's jewelry. I'm trying on Mr. Carryway's polka dot tie in the full-length mirror in the closet. Janet is no longer in the room. She's disappeared downstairs. I follow her down the grand staircase wearing only Mr. Carryway's button-down tie and big loose boxers, and Janet scrambling to stuff her newly stolen things into a white leather purse, also stolen. And I say, "Well, now where do you think you're off to, sweetheart?" She says, "I'm getting out of here. I can't do this anymore. I don't know who you are anymore." And I say, "Well, it's just me, darling. You're one and only." I tighten the tie around my neck. She says, "I'm leaving, Joey." She's opening the door. A blast of conditioned 65-degree air escapes. "What can I tell you to get you to stay?" "There's nothing to be said, Joey. This is not for me." She's just standing there. I do hope one way or the other the door gets closed soon. I am not looking to air condition the whole neighborhood. And it's right at that exact moment a pink ball rolls in through the open door. We both watch it decelerate across the living room and stop all at once at the opposing wall. We blink once, twice. Then there's a pattering of soft footsteps, and then the boy runs into the household after his ball. And here's the two of us, two strangers in his neighbor's home, strangers who are totally not his neighbors, the Carryways, who he knows well and says hello to daily. He looks at us and we look at him. And while there are surely a number of other good options at hand here, what I do is spring into action all at once and leap upon the boy and seize him up by his shoulders, and I do it so swiftly that he doesn't make a sound, and I hold my hand over his mouth and nose while Janet screams repeatedly, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I hold the boy like this until he's unconscious. Then I go ahead and tie him to one of the dining room chairs with a set of the Carryway's electrical cords, both his small hands behind the chairs and his tiny waist to the back of the chair itself, just as Janet taught me. And he's sleeping soundly in the chair, and Janet is still verifiably freaked out. I can see that as I walk to the front door with the pink bouncy ball, toss it out and down the porch steps, back the way it came, and then close the door in the same motion. Now it's just me and Janet and the sleeping neighbor kid in here. One big, happy family. Janet says again, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" And I'm like, "This house needs a family. It's not a family without kids, right?" Janet's total lack of speech doesn't exactly scream consensus. The kid's head is drooping down onto his chest. None of his friends come to check on him in the following 5 minutes. Little man needs better friends, I think. I say to Janet, "That's really a lovely string of pearls you have there, darling. Let's see them around your neck, shall we?" And I take the pearls out of her gently shaking hands and wrap them around her neck. They clasp naturally at the back. "There," I say. "Look at you. You're perfect." "I don't know who you are anymore," she says. "Sure you do. I'm your partner in crime." "Joey, I don't want this," she says. "Sure you do. You won't know until you try," I say. "And what if I try and I don't get used to it?" "You will, darling. You will." I kiss her on the forehead. The kid is stirring from his sleep. I say to Janet, "Why don't you go check on him? He could use a nurturing maternal presence." Janet drifts leftward and coos the little boy into a state of calm as he wakes, only gently crying now, wondering where the fuck he might be. I go back to the living room and flip on the game. I crack open a cold one from the fridge. I change my mind and go outside to mow the lawn. I walk with a real swing in my step. I whistle a merry tune. It feels good to sweat in the Sunday morning sun. I wave to a neighbor or two. They don't wave back. They don't know me. That's okay. They're simply friends I haven't met yet. Our local mail person traverses the sidewalk. I wave. I can see the game playing inside the house. Oh, and also Janet untying the electrical cords. She is holding the boy's hand and leading him away from the chair. She's such a great mom. A natural aptitude that who knew she had lying latent within her. I'd better go check on them now. I return the mower to the garage, which I had to break into using Janet's method for breaking locks. Remember the good old days, the glory days of our youth, weren't they? And I head back into the house where Janet and our little guy are rapidly approaching the open front door. The digital clock in the foyer reads 9 o'clock. The Carryways will be here shortly. And where do you think you two are going? I say. We're leaving, Joey. We're getting the fuck out of here, she says. Yes, I can see that, but where are you going? She says, we're going to New Orleans, and I'm taking him home. I say, look around you, darling. Is this not home? Janet is out the door and on the porch, and I am all but forced to follow her. I say to her and the boy both, wait, hang on, gang, let's figure this out together. And Janet turns to face me. I am reminded of a time in the past where she might have hit me across the face, but things have changed now, in ways I can't quite put fingers on. And also, she wouldn't do that in front of the boy, surely not. Instead of hitting me, she's thinking of something to say, something perfect and final, when somewhere behind us all we hear someone cry out, well, you must be the Carryways. We turn to see a man and a woman standing at the base of the porch. The man is holding a platter of cookies, the woman flowers. She says, how do you do? We stare blankly at the both of them. The man says, we're your new neighbors. Wanted to pop over and say hello. Silence from us. Blinking. The boy writhes a little in Janet's arms. I'm Mike, says Mike. And I'm Martha, says Martha. Mike says, the realtor mentioned there was another young family living next to us. That was a real green flag for us. You see, we're expecting ourselves. Upon closer inspection, yes, the woman is with child, as the expression goes. The woman leans in towards our little man and says, and this must be Calvin. Well, hi there, Calvin, how do you do? And Calvin says, hi, ma'am, how do you do? Like the well-mannered boy he is. And Janet says, no, there must be some mistake here. You see, we are not, in fact, the Carryways. Mike and Martha frown for half a second. There is a pause. And then they laugh. They laugh like people who've never suffered. They laugh like it's performance art. I give it a try myself. It is quite the ab workout. We all go. We all laugh as in like, what do you mean we're not the Carryways? This must be some kind of joke on behalf of Janet. Martha finally pulls herself together enough to say, well, who are you then? And what are you doing trespassing on the Carryways property, Mike says, still laughing. Martha laughs. I laugh. We'd have to call the police in that case, right? Mike laughs. Martha laughs. Calvin laughs. I laugh. Martha asks, so how are you three liking the neighborhood? We've heard only good things. And I go ahead and say, it's perfect. Perfect for a family like us. And Martha says, good, good, and nods. And Mike says, good, good, and nods. And Calvin coughs with his mouth open, and Janet just stands there. There's another healthy pause here at which Mike says, well, we'll leave you lot to it. Pleasure to meet you both. And Martha says, oh, but don't let us forget these, and extends her bouquet of flowers forward. Calvin takes the flowers and gives them a deep sniff. Mike hands me the platter of cookies and says, you'll have to have us over for dinner sometime so I can retrieve that ceramic tray from you. Those things are a pretty penny these days. He laughs. Janet throws up a little in her mouth. Mike and Martha hold hands and walk back to their gorgeous home on the other side of the street. I come up next to Janet and the boy and take the boy's other hand, so we, Janet and I, stand on either side of him. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. The automatic sprinklers have switched on and are firing across the freshly mowed lawn. Janet's pearls glint like steel in the morning light. There's a group of rich children playing ball in the street, screaming and shouting with glee. Calvin, our little man, looks up at us, the tall people holding his hands, and says, can I go play now? And I look at Janet, and Janet looks at me. I say, go on. And we let our little man go. And we watch him run off into the great wide street, all the joy of youth trailing behind him.